That. Peter's on the line in Chesterfield. Morning, Peter.
Morning, Toby.
How are you keeping it?
I'm spot on, to be honest with you. It's not an easy thing to say, with a lot of people losing people, but I think our household, we've handled it pretty good, to be honest, mate. My daughter was on phone to you, can't remember how many weeks ago. I think you're encouraging children to ring up. And Ruby, she rang up, she had a chat with you. And it's been all right. We've been organised. We've got a man shed at bottom. There's 4 of us in a terraced house. I've kept myself busy in garden. I've learnt to do DIY.
Yeah.
I've taught my daughters how to use a sewing machine, teaching them a few old dance moves. So we see, it's an awful, really, thing to say, Toby, but I've took advantage, really, of the time off. And,
I don't think that's awful at all, Peter. I think that's exactly what you got to do, isn't it? You got to get through it as best you can, and if you can enjoy it, that's even better. I'm sorry, people. We're going to have to cut to the Prime Minister now because he's just come out. This is the Prime Minister on this.
I want to thank you, the people of this country, for the sheer grit and guts you've shown and are continuing to show. Every day, I know that this virus brings new sadness and mourning to households across the land. And it is still true that this is the biggest single challenge this country has faced since the war. And I in no way minimize the continuing problems we face. And yet it is also true that we are making progress with fewer hospital admissions, fewer COVID patients in ICU, and real signs now that we are passing through the peak. And thanks to your forbearance, your good sense, your altruism, your spirit of community, thanks to our collective national resolve, we are on the brink of achieving that first clear mission to prevent our National Health Service from being overwhelmed in a way that tragically we have seen elsewhere. And that is how and why we are now beginning to turn the tide. If this virus were a physical assailant, an unexpected and invisible mugger, which I can tell you from personal experience it is, then this is the moment when we have begun together to wrestle it to the floor. And so it follows that this is the moment of opportunity. This is the moment when we can press home our advantage. It is also the moment of maximum risk, because I know there will be many people looking now at our apparent success and beginning to wonder whether now is the time to go easy on those social distancing measures. And I know how hard and how stressful it has been to give up, even temporarily, those ancient and basic freedoms, not seeing friends, not seeing loved ones, working from home, managing the kids, worrying about your job and your firm. So let me say directly also to British business, to the shopkeepers, to the entrepreneurs, to the hospitality sector, to everyone on whom our economy depends. I understand your impatience. I share your anxiety. And I know that without our private sector, without the drive and commitment of the wealth creators of this country, there will be no economy to speak of. There will be no cash to pay for our public services, no way of funding our NHS. And yes, I can see the long-term consequences of lockdown as clearly as anyone. And so, yes, I entirely share your urgency. It's the government's urgency. And yet we must also recognize the risk of a second spike, the risk of losing control of that virus and letting the reproduction rate go back over 1. Because that would mean not only a new wave of death and disease, but also an economic disaster. And we would be forced once again to slam on the brakes across the whole country and the whole economy, and reimpose restrictions in such a way as to do more and lasting damage. And so I know it is tough, and I want to get this economy moving as fast as I can, but I refuse to throw away all the effort and the sacrifice of the British people, and to risk a second major outbreak and huge loss of life and the overwhelming of the NHS. And I ask you to contain your impatience, because I believe we are coming now to the end of the first phase of this conflict. And in spite of all the suffering, we have so nearly succeeded. We defied so many predictions. We did not run out of ventilators or ICU beds. We did not allow our NHS to collapse. And on the contrary, we have so far collectively shielded our NHS so that our incredible doctors and nurses and healthcare staff have been able to shield all of us from an outbreak that would have been far worse. And we collectively flattened the peak. And so when we're sure that this first phase is over and that we're meeting our 5 tests, deaths falling, NHS protected, rate of infection down, really sorting out the challenges of testing and PPE, avoiding a second peak, then that will be the time to move on to the second phase, in which we continue to suppress the disease and keep the reproduction rate, the R rate, down, but begin gradually to refine the economic and social restrictions, and one by one to fire up the engines of this vast UK economy. And in that process, difficult judgments will be made. And we simply cannot spell out now how fast or slow or even when those changes will be made, though clearly the government will be saying much more about this in the coming days. And I want to serve notice now that these decisions will be taken with the maximum possible transparency. And I want to share all our working and our thinking, my thinking, with you, the British people. And of course, we will be relying, as ever, on the science to inform us, as we have from the beginning. But we will also be reaching out to build the biggest possible consensus across business, across industry, across all parts of our United Kingdom, across party lines, bringing in opposition parties as far as we possibly can, because I think that's no less than what the British people would expect. And I can tell you now that preparations are underway and have been for weeks to allow us to win phase 2 of this fight, as I believe we are now on track to prevail in phase 1. And so I say to you finally, if you can keep going in the way that you have kept going so far, if you can help protect our NHS to save lives, and if we as a country can show the same spirit of optimism and energy shown by Captain Tom Moore, who turns 100 this week, if we can show the same spirit of unity and determination as we've all shown in the past 6 weeks, then I have absolutely no doubt that we will beat it together. We will come through this all the faster, and the United Kingdom will emerge stronger than ever before. Thank you all very much.
So earlier on, before we were so rudely interrupted by the Prime Minister, I was speaking to Peter in Chesterfield. Morning, Peter.
Morning, Toby.
And now you were talking about how lockdown was affecting you, how you were quite enjoying being with the kids. But then we heard from the Prime Minister, there's no change in the near future. What is it you do for a living, Peter?
Well, I put the boot on the other foot. I'm a cobbler.
Right, okay. So are you self-employed or?
I'm self-employed and I own limited companies, and I'm non-executive director of various other companies.
Right.
And I've traded out of Yorkshire. I'm definitely Yorkshire's number one, buddy. I'm a Dino lad, and
Yeah.
I've learned everything about business throughout my life from being 12, and I've never learned as much about life as this last 3 months because I've been a workaholic, mate. But this has changed me. I've learned to be a proper father to my children and a family now, and they're the priority. And anybody out there, I'd just like to say, don't worry, because when this is over, the celebrations, these bars will be making more money in a week than 6 months. That's a prediction from me, because people will celebrate like the Second World War when we beat it.
But the difficulty is, isn't it? It's going to be that you'll not be able to go in the pubs because the social distancing will still be a thing.
Well, when we beat it, mate, and we will beat it. We'll beat it. We'll put it out of action. Sheffield will play a big part, I think. It's a fighting city, brilliant boxers. And we've got to do a few more rounds. Yeah, we can't stop. We've got to carry on, I think, passionately, not just because I'm having a good time. It makes common sense. I mean, I don't know if you're working from home. I know some DJs, if I can call you that, Toby, presenters, they're working from home. My missus will probably work from home for the rest of her life now. She's got a brand new shed. She don't need to be going and painting car and messing about with car parks and grossly inflated prices. She can sit and work from computer at home and listen to birds whistling and do a bit of gardening at dinner time.
Well, I'm certainly working from home because I'm isolating until Wednesday after Maisie got a cough. But working from home for me doesn't really help anybody because my job is only half the job is presenting, the other half is running the desk, and because I'm here, somebody else has to go into the office. So me being at home doesn't mean we've got a body less in the office. So it's a bit unfair. So I can't wait to get back in really because it's poor old Adam Monks who's having to get up every morning.
And the ambience, talking about ambience as well. I mean, you guys, radio for me has been fantastic. I know my mum told me all the stories about the war, and they all used to sit round radio. And they tune in for world news, and they'd have coal fire on. I'm from a mining background, and I've been saying I've never left the radio. I had it on last night, Radio Sheffield. I didn't realise that it plays to the whole of Yorkshire, and it was the best show I've heard. I mean, I'm a Tony Blackburn fan, but I think the radio was doing a fantastic job keeping the people of Britain, keeping them warm and loved to a degree, and the music that's been selected is phenomenal.
No, we're happy. We're happy that we're doing the job right. We're getting out there to everybody, and we're hopefully we're looking after people. And if we're not, if everybody's listening to that and you want to hear something else, think about us, Peter. If you ring us, we can change. If you're sat there listening to this thinking, I wish Radio Sheffield were doing this, don't sit and moan about it. Give us a call. Peter, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, mate. You take care. Peter in Chesterfield there. You too, mate. He's sorted out through this environment, through this lockdown. How are you? 0800 111 49 49.